It's like 2:30 a.m. and I'm finishing up some reading for class, but it's my class on religion, so I started thinking about this because it literally, we at one point in the readings it mentioned a New Age spirituality, so I wanted to talk about that because I've been reconciling with this for years now, that I enjoy watching all the YouTube content of New Age spirituality type stuff, like tarot cards and astrology and blah blah blah. Super fun, interesting entertainment. Um, but as a scholar, I have to think of these things critically, right? And I mean, there's obviously like a traditional, I can't say traditional, but there's been a long term kind of dispute, right? Just this idea of secularism in general is like with ration and with reason, you know, as the more modern the world gets, and the more we base all of our stuff on scientific reasoning, that the less we need religion, blah blah. And that used to be the case. I don't think that the vast majority of people actually believe that to be true nowadays, and I mean, I don't think I agree with that either, but it still is something to reconcile with. So there's that, just in a general sense. But recently, I was watching a video, and then this like tarot girl. I shouldn't admit that I watch those videos, whatever. But obviously I do, because I've talked about a little bit about New Age spirituality in one of my like old videos. It was probably like my third video or something. And I'll mention that reference again soon. But this girl basically was talking about, she tried to bring it up backhandedly, but she started talking about the vaccines, right, and how you shouldn't feel obligated to put something in your body that you don't want to. Okay, whatever. I've talked about vaccines as well pretty recently on here, and I was like taken aback because I was like, bitch, you're kind of young. Like, I don't know, I don't really hear that argument coming from young people. I feel like I only hear that argument coming from people who are 30 years old plus. So the fact that I was hearing that, I was like taken aback. But then I was like, actually, no, maybe there's more to this, because I shouldn't be surprised, because this whole New Age spirituality, right? It's trying to be holistic. It's literally it's counter secularism. It's literally this, what is called a religious subculture. I'm going based off of the readings I just did. If you want to know what I'm talking about, it's the author named Berger, and with an E, the desecularization of the world. Okay, that's what we were reading for class. And then how modernism and everything kind of creates these strong counter secularization movements, these counter modernism movements where people are suddenly very quote unquote religious or spiritual or whatever. And there's two methods of doing this, and one is being kind of a religious revolution, which is something you could see in like Iran, for example. The other one is religious subcultures. And then you realize, oh, right, so this new age thing that actually started in the 70s and 80s, right? This new age thing, that counts as a subculture. So of course it's counter-modernism. Of course it's counter-scientific reasoning. Of course a lot of people who fall into these groups literally don't want to listen to the scientific proof of getting a vaccine or of wearing masks or whatever. And then again, a lot of the people who follow this new age spirituality stuff are people who just feel disillusioned in general by the modern medical system, and I've talked about that in the vaccine video. And so I was like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't really be surprised that she's saying something like that, but I was really taken aback, and this is why. I was taken aback because this New Age spirituality stuff has so many paradoxes. It's like, you're saying this one thing, but you also say this other thing that completely goes against it, right? So here's this being the first paradox now that I just mentioned, right? This idea of holistic spirituality and or holistic healing. Okay, I'm going to start throwing in some words in here. The idea of using some medicines that are outside of the modern medical system. So essential oils and this, and that, whatever. Those kinds of things. Right? And obviously herbs, stuff like that. Okay. There is a push towards that. But at the same time, we live in an era of pandemic. Okay. Where modern medicine is incredibly important. But also, there's this other narrative in New Age spirituality that is about collective. This idea that there are people out there who are light workers, that people are trying to go beyond their individual self and somehow connect this collective and improve the world around them and protect the people around them, right? So on one hand, this holistic healing is this kind of very personalized and thing, right, that can make people not want to take the vaccine. But at the same time, there's also this idea of collectivism that would suggest, hey, maybe you should take the vaccine, right, for the collective good of the whole, right? Because that's how vaccines work, is the more people that take them, the more effective they are in general, right? Let's talk measles, mumps, rubella. That's been the case. So there's this paradox. That's one paradox that was the first one that I really was like, oh, I'm having a hard time with this, because despite the fact that I understand why people don't want to get vaccines, I personally have vaccinated and I want the people in my circle to be vaccinated. So that was weird. That's one paradox. Is like, how do you deal with a pandemic in the face of all of this? Okay, great. Then there's the paradox of like just consumerism. So another part of New Age spirituality is this idea of like, you know, going beyond the physical body. Not that the physical body isn't important, right? There's always a balance there. But this idea of like detachment from physical things, from people, from entities, from whatever. This idea of detachment is a very monk-like thing also. I mean, it's a very old belief. So there's this idea of attachment on one hand, and then on the other hand, there's this mass consumerism. Mass consumer. Buy all the crystals, get this crystal for this, get this crystal for that, buy all the different tarot decks for this, this, and that, buy this herb for this, buy this herb, buy. So how can you tell me be detached from the physical, be detached from the corporal, and then at the same time I need all of these physical things to be able to manifest? What a huge paradox. How do you resolve that? How do you resolve that? And like, okay, you can say there's a balance in everything. Sure, there's a balance in everything, but like, it's such extremes. It's such whatever. Okay. The other problem with this consumerism is that we know in general the consumerism has been targeted towards women. Women are a vast majority of the consumers. So it's not particularly surprising that this New Age spirituality that's been taking over is predominantly women. I don't know, it just feels like another way to bamboozle women out of their money. But maybe I'm wrong. So I don't know, that's another paradox. There was another one that I was thinking of. Do I have it written here somewhere? No, I think those are just going to be my main two for now. Maybe if I have something, I'll like add it in the description or whatever. Like I said, it's late as fuck. So yeah. Oh, wait. I was gonna say some paradox between, again, this idea of like collectivism, but also this idea of like individualism. So it's like, brain. I remembered. So one reason I said that I think before, right, when I made that video in the past, one reason I think that New Age spirituality is making this real big come up lately is that it is so personalized, right? You get these crystals for yourself personally. You have these tarot card readings for yourself personally. The astrology, all of that's the apps and everything, and you get your birth chart and you get your numerology and you get this, and that, and it just feels so personal. Well, along with personalization comes the idea of individualism, and that I am an individual and I have my own unique experience in this universe, and therefore I need some unique guidance. And again, a weird paradox to the whole collectivism thing. But I want to take it a step further, and I want to connect some of these principles to some bigger trends. Individualism, in general, is conflated with the idea of capitalism, modernism, right? Individualism comes from this capitalist thing. It's not a collectivist trait. And capitalism can be seen as, I mean, for one, right, it's breeding into this consumerism, but it's also a huge identifier of modernism. So, how is it that this subculture that is counter secularism, that is counter modernism, is being fed by exactly that? Is being fed exactly by the modernism that has created the individualism. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't fucking know. I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm confused. Those are my three paradoxes. There you go. So, one being, how do we deal in a pandemic when holistic healing versus this idea of collective? The second one being, whatever the fuck I said it was, the consumerism and detachment paradox. And then this third one being this idea of individualism in the face of counter modernization. I hope that made sense.